Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping straight into Berachain. We got some interesting source material here.
That's right. It's a project report dated February 6th, 2025. Our mission today, pull out the key insights.
Exactly. Get you up to speed quickly on what Berachain is, its core ideas, and what was happening around that date, according to this report.
And what makes it stand out, based on the source, is its approach. Very different layer one using something called Proof-of-Liquidity.
Yeah, and a pretty distinct token model, too. So let's start there. What is Berachain, according to this document?
Okay, so the report defines it as a high-performance EVM-identical layer one blockchain.
EVM-identical, so like Ethereum for developers, same tool, same contract.
Pretty much, yeah. That's the idea. Makes it easier for existing Ethereum developers to jump in. But the big twist is that Proof-of-Liquidity, or POL.
Right, POL. The report highlights it as the main innovation, their Sybil resistance mechanism. But, how does it actually work? How does it tie liquidity to security?
Well, the source describes POLA as basically a framework. It's set up to reward liquidity within the ecosystem.
Reward liquidity, how?
It's about how it incentivizes people. Validators, for example. They don't just stake BER, the native token. They have to stake liquidity in certain pools or provide other useful capital to the ecosystem.
Ah, okay. So it's not just locking tokens away.
Exactly. You're actively contributing to the network's economy while helping secure the chain. That's the reported goal.
That sounds fundamentally different. So what's the intended outcome of doing it that way?
The source says it's aiming for several things. Better trading efficiency and price stability because you're encouraging deep liquidity pools.
Makes sense.
And at the same time, it secures the chain and hopefully drives growth because validator rewards are tied to the overall health of the ecosystem.
Okay, and the tech underneath all this?
It's built on something called BeaconKit. The report calls it a modular EVM-focused consensus client framework.
Modular, okay. And it integrates something else?
Yeah, it integrates benefits from Comet BFT consensus.
Comet BFT. What does that bring to the table, according to the report, for people not super deep in consensus mechanisms?
So BeaconKit with Comet BFT is described as bringing things like increased composability, how well different parts work together, and single slot finality, SSF.
Single slot finality. That means transactions are confirmed super fast, right?
Yep.
Almost instantly.
Exactly. Once it's in a block, it's considered final. Big boost for speed and, the user experience.
So you've got this unique PO idea combined with a fast composable consensus layer. The goal is a chain that's both secure and efficient, but security is tied directly to the economic activity.
That's precisely the picture the source paints. The whole value proposition hinges on POL strongly aligning incentives for everyone, validators, protocols, users.
By combining liquidity and security right at the base layer.
Yeah, that's the really interesting part they're trying to build. Where participating economically is securing the network.
Okay, let's dig into that ecosystem structure then, especially the tokens. The report mentions a unique model.
Right. It's not your typical one or two token setup. This source highlights three main tokens working together.
First up is BR. What's its role described as?
BR is the native utility token, so its main jobs are being the gas token you use it to pay for transactions.
Standard stuff.
Yeah, standard stuff there, but it's also the staking token. Validators have to stake BERA to participate in securing the network, fitting into that POL framework.
Gotcha. And the report gave some tokenomics details as of early Feb 2025.
It did. Genesis total supply, 500 million BER. Initial circulating supply expected at listing about 107.5 million, so 21.5% of Genesis.
Okay.
And interestingly, it states the maximum supply is uncapped, with a 10% yearly inflation mentioned based on emission type.
Uncapped, huh? That's a choice. Any specific allocations mentioned?
Yeah, it listed 10 million or 2% for a hotel or airdrop and 5 million 1% for Binance marketing campaigns right out of that Genesis supply.
Okay, BR for gas and staking. Then there's Honey, a stablecoin.
Right, Honey. Berachain's native stablecoin. Its purpose, as stated, is to kind of unify liquidity across the ecosystem, act as a stable medium of exchange.
And how is it backed? That's always the key question with stablecoin.
The report is specific here. It says Honey is fully backed by legally compliant centralized stablecoins. It even gives examples, USDC and PyUSD.
Okay, so backed by established stablecoins. Good to know. And the third one, BGT, BERA governance token. This sounds different.
Very different. BGT is maybe the most direct link to the POL incentives. The absolute key thing the report stresses, it is non-transferable.
Non-transferable at all. So you can't buy it or sell it?
Nope, can't trade it.
No. How do you get it?
The source says you can only earn BGT by doing productive activities within the Berachain ecosystem.
Ah, so it directly ties governance power of the BGT to actually contributing to the network.
Precisely. It reinforces that poll idea. It's not about just holding beer. It's about actively participating in ways the network wants to encourage. Governance belongs to the active users and providers.
That is a fascinating design. Really focuses governance. So BA for utility, Honey for stability, non-transferable BGT for governance earned through activity. What about the native DIX? BEX, how does that fit?
So BEX is Berachain's native decentralized exchange. The report highlights it as the first application powered by Proof-of-Liquidity right from the start.
Okay, so it's central.
Very central. Its function is key to the whole poll loop. Users provide liquidity to certain pairs on the BEX.
And by doing that productive activity.
And then earn BGT, the network's reward and governance token.
Got it. So the DEX fuels the poll mechanism by rewarding the liquidity providers. Makes sense. What do the reports say about its design?
It mentioned it's based on Balancer's architecture, so leveraging known successful DX design principles.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. What did the reports say about their progress in ecosystem growth as of that February 6th date? Any milestones?
Yeah, the report laid out a timeline. Some significant funding, $42 million Series A back in Q2 2023.
Right.
Then $100 million Series B in Q2 2024. The public testnet, Bartio, launched Q1 2024.
Okay, so building momentum.
And then just before the report date, in Q1 2025, they mentioned this Boyko pre-launch liquidity campaign. Stated it secured over $3.1 billion in deposits.
Wow, $3.1 billion before mainnet. That's a lot of reported interest.
Definitely a big number highlighted.
Yeah.
And crucially, the report also stated the mainnet launch itself, along with the token generation event, TGE, happened in that same quarter, Q1 2025.
Okay. What about activity figures? Anything reported on testnet or early mainnet?
On the Bartio testnet, they stated over 250 dApps were live, which is quite a bit for a testnet.
Yeah, suggests developer interest.
And for mainnet, they reiterated that $3.1 billion in committed TVL from the Boyko campaign. Plus, it mentioned over 130 dApps had already been awarded token allocations via their RFA program.
RFA program.
Request for allocation, presumably. So seeding the ecosystem with projects early on.
Right. Beyond the internal numbers, what about external partnerships? Commercial, business development stuff mentioned in the source.
Yes, quite a few were listed, suggesting efforts to build a solid foundation. Google Cloud Platform was named as the primary cloud provider.
GCP.
Yeah.
That's significant. What kind of collaboration?
Several things reported. Helping with node deployment, putting testnet and mainnet data into BigQuery for analysis, working on AI initiatives, GCP even running a mainnet validator.
Wow, okay.
And offering $200 K in cloud credits for startups in their Build a BERA program. So deep infrastructure and developer support reported there.
Very comprehensive. Who else? Bridging. Interoperability.
LayerZero, listed as the canonical bridge for mainnet, using their omnichain tech for reported secure cross-chain transfers, avoiding traditional bridge risks. Key for connecting Berachain outwards.
Makes sense. Any mention of NFTs, that's always a big part of new chains.
Yep. Magic Eden, the NFT marketplace. The report said they worked with the Berachain ecosystem to build a specific hub for Berachain NFTs.
Ah, a dedicated space.
And we're set to launch some of the first NFTs on the mainnet, so getting that NFT ecosystem going early.
You mentioned PyUSD backing Honey. Was PayPal listed directly?
Well, PayPal USD, par USD, was named as one of the stablecoins backing Honey, described as issued by PayPal. Also mentioned was USDTU, Tether's on-chain stablecoin on LayerZero, which reportedly participated in that Boyko liquidity program.
So integrating major stablecoins. What about the essential tools for developers and users? Data, wallets.
A whole list reported there. Goldski for real-time data, the Graph for decentralized indexing, querying blockchain data, Pyth for Oracle data, real-time market feeds.
Standard important infrastructure.
Exactly. Also mentioned Etherscan for context, Dune for analytics dashboards, Third Web for developer tools, and Safe for multi-sig smart contract wallets. The report suggests they were covering the bases for core dev and user infrastructure.
Okay, that gives a really detailed picture based on that February 6th report. Let's try and synthesize this. Stepping back, what's the big takeaway here? What's the core story from this source material?
I think the main thing, the thread running through it all, is this reported attempt to fundamentally rewire L1 incentives. It's not just another fast EVM chain.
It's the proof-of-liquidity angle.
It's the POL, yes. Integrating liquidity provision directly into the security model. And then building the tokenomics, the BERA, honey, and especially that non-transferable BG2 around reinforcing that core mechanism.
So the innovation isn't just the parts, the DX, the stablecoin,
Yeah.
but how they reportedly interlock through Polol and the BGT earning mechanism.
Exactly. The whole reported value proposition is creating this flywheel. Productive participation secures the chain, earns governance, attracts more users, deepens liquidity, which further secures the chain. You see the loop.
Yeah, a self-reinforcing cycle, ideally.
That's the aim described. And the reported ecosystem growth, the partnerships, the committed TVL, those are presented in the source as the early signs of this model getting off the ground around that time.
Right. So we've unpacked the Berachain project report from February 6th, 2025. We looked at its reported proof-of-liquidity consensus, the Bear on Honey YBGT token system, and the ecosystem progress and partnerships mentioned as of that date.
So building on all that, here's something to think about, a final thought based purely on the source material's description. Consider a network where security and governance aren't just bought with capital, but earned through specific, ongoing, productive actions like providing liquidity.
Right, that direct link.
How might that fundamentally change user behavior? Would it attract a different kind of participant compared to chains where you can just buy tokens and stake passively, or buy governance power outright?
Does it potentially filter for longer-term alignment, maybe? Less pure speculation?
That's the kind of question the design described in this report raises. What are the real downstream effects on users, on developers, on the protocols built there if you build an entire ecosystem around that core principle of earning your stake through active contribution?
Definitely food for thought, how that unique incentive structure described in the report might play out in the real world.
Exactly.
Well, thanks for walking us through this deep dive into the Berachain source material as of February 6th, 2025.